Alright, so let's get started. So this meeting is for AutoCAD Electrical productivity, basically, and how to improve productivity over AutoCAD using, doing electrical schematics and all that sort of stuff. So nothing else I need to do, just making sure. No, all good. Alright, so let's get straight into it. So what you're looking at the screen right now is AutoCAD Electrical. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about efficiencies around AutoCAD Electrical and some basics in AutoCAD Electrical as well. So irrelevant of your AutoCAD Electrical knowledge, I'm hoping you'll get something out of this. As with all products that I use from Autodesk and other products as well, I use Vault with my AutoCAD Electrical. All my projects and everything are stored in my Vault. And again, this is just something that I choose to do. It helps me manage all my documents a bit better. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my electrical webinar in my Vault. So this is my Vault, and I'm not going to speak too much about Vault through the webinar. But the first thing I'm going to do is just find my electrical webinar. Here's my project, and what I actually want to do is I want to make a copy of this project. A couple of things about AutoCAD Electrical before we get started. We have a project file, which is what you're looking at there, and I'll show you that in the browser in AutoCAD Electrical in a moment. And all the drawing files are actually just DWG files, as you can see there as well. Whenever you make a new schematic or a new layout, panel layout or something like that, they're always in new drawings, so they're very easily indexed by Vault, and you can see the indexing happening there. So all this information you can see on the screen there is actually being pulled out of the drawing title block, which is one of the first things we'll talk about. But in order to get started, let's make a copy of the project, and so I'm just going to pick on the project and go Copy Design. This will allow me to copy all of the drawings in there or reuse some of them if I wanted to, but in this case I do want to copy all the drawings, so that's what I'll do. I can add a prefix, a suffix, and all that sort of stuff in here if I want to, so I might just put in -002 and apply that to all my new drawing names, as you can see, and I'll just place that into a new folder inside of my designs folder. So elec webinar, that'll do. And as you can see, we've now got the new Vault path as electrical webinar, and then we're going to copy all them. So that's what's going to happen. We're going to run that copy. It will make the folder in here, and it'll make a copy of all those. Now the really nice part about this is when I use Vault, it will actually maintain all the links inside inside the files. It'll index all the drawings and everything. As you can see in my Vaults, I've got different properties here showing, as opposed to when I look at this one, I've got different properties here. I've actually set up an electrical view because you might be using Vault with other disciplines as well. They might have different information you want to display. So I've got an electrical view for my electrical drawings. So now that I've got a copy of all my drawings, I'm going to go ahead and head into AutoCAD Electrical and open up that project directly from Vault. And just navigate through as you would normally to find the project. Alright, so let's go and check all those drawings out. You can see my electrical browser here fires up, and it's gone ahead and opened up the project that I've just gone and copied. Let's just go and fire up the first drawing in that project. You can see in AutoCAD Electrical I'm able to separate different drawings into different subfolders. You can see all the drawings there are collected underneath the project, but they've all got their own subfolders as well. The first thing I want to do, because I've just gone and copied that project, is I might want to change some project settings. One of the really nice parts about AutoCAD Electrical is it allows us to do this on a global scale. So on all of the drawings there, if I wanted to change the title block for all of the drawings, I'd be able to do that. So let's go into descriptions, and let's just go and change it to, let's remove the technologies and just leave it as A2K. Let's call it electrical webinar, not demo. And just make a few little changes here, and we'll just get rid of level 12 and we'll just call it 470. Alright, so the changes I wanted to make now have been applied. Let's go ahead and apply that. In AutoCAD Electrical, it will store all that information inside the electrical project file until we go and apply it to the title blocks themselves. You can see the title blocks have not been updated, so let's go ahead and update the title block. Let's go and select all. This is one of the settings that we probably want to save in the future, so I will actually do that because I don't want to be in these boxes every single time. So this is one of the really nice parts about electrical, is most of these settings that actually will allow us to save, and that's that little button there. So when I save those settings, I'll not need to tick all those boxes again. Sometimes you might have only certain project description lines or drawing description lines that you might want to update. So if that's the case, then you can untick the ones you don't want to update, save those. So this is now going to go through every single one of my drawings, and as you can see, it's actually ticking and checking out drawings. And yes, we do want to check them all out. No, we don't want to check them in. So it's gone ahead and checked out all the drawings, and it's obviously made those changes to my title block as well, which is exactly what I wanted. So you can see electrical webinar, A2K, I've got my address there's been changed, and that will have been changed on all of the drawings as well. So this is standard AutoCAD electrical functionality, and when you have your title block set up correctly, this will actually be extremely useful for you. Not to mention that if I was to go and put all that back in Vault, check in all, let's go and do that quickly. Yes, we'll save, and it'll go and put all those drawings back in Vault. Those drawings are back in Vault. It's just creating visualization files. You can see, there we go, let's just update. We can see all the information has been put in, so we can see the old information. When this is done, you can see the new information has also been put in, which is really nice. So that's a little bit about the title block updating. And again, this does need to be set up, but once it is set up, it's actually an extremely useful feature. You can actually resequence sheet numbers based on the location they are in the project. You can display all sorts of information in your title block based on those global settings, or based on, let me just get them all out again, or based on drawing settings as well. So we have two sets of properties that we can use. One is what we call a project setting or a global setting. Things like address and drawn by and those sort of things might be classified as a project setting. Obviously the project number would be classified as a project setting. And then we have individual drawing settings, things like this information here, which would be different for every single drawing. So if I wanted to modify that drawing settings, I can go into my drawing properties and change the drawing descriptions, sheet numbers and whatnot. But obviously the sheet numbers have just been updated through that title block update. So that's a little bit just about the setup before we get started. Let's jump into AutoCAD electrical functionality now and straight over to it. So when we set up AutoCAD Electrical, we would set it up with a specific library that we'd want to use. In my case, I'm using the IEC library, and you can see it just by the end of the file path there. You can see IEC2. Now what that actually means is we're using the IEC library, and the text that will be inserted near the symbols, and you can see an example of the symbols just near that ground symbol there, is 2 millimeter high, and that's what the 2 is indicating. Now if we were to go and browse on that and go and look at other libraries, we can see under the Libs folder here we've got IEC4, which as you probably worked out is IEC symbols but with 4 millimeter text. And then if we look at the JIC, which would be an imperial symbol, we've got 1 and 1.25. That's 0.1 inch and 0.125 inch, I think is how you interpret that, although I don't use imperial symbols that often. You've got a few other ones here, 60617, which is the new one, panel diagrams and all that sort of stuff, which we'll get to in a moment. But that's basically how we go and define what library we're using. And once we've defined that library and we go and insert a component from that library, you'll see the ISE schematic library has popped up, and you'll see all the schematic symbols that we're using as well. So all these symbols are drawn in metric scale. So what that means is when you insert them into a metric title block, they'll come in the right scale and everything, which is good. So let's go ahead and insert just a relay. And this is really the reason why I would never go back to AutoCAD from AutoCAD Electrical, is just the ease of being able to insert and build your schematics up. So when I go and pick on a symbol, it's just as easily as navigating to whatever symbol I'm after. If it's a push button, if it's a relay, if it's a breaker or fuse or whatever it is. It's extremely easy to navigate to exactly what I'm after. There's quite a large selection. There's over 10,000 symbols in the AutoCAD Electrical schematic library. And let's go and insert it. As soon as I go to insert it, I just place it on whatever rung or whatever line I want. The symbol will orientate based on the direction of the wire, so whether it's horizontal or vertical. So if I was to place that same symbol on this jumper wire here, it would obviously orientate itself vertically. And the other parts of AutoCAD Electrical which I find extremely useful are the automatic component tagging as well. So when I do a new symbol, you can see the component tag is automatically generated for me, which is extremely useful. And that tag is extremely customizable. So what you'll probably find is that there'll be something you'll be able to tweak in order to get the tag numbering that you want. In my case, I'm using tag numbering based on where the location or what rung number the component is being placed on. And I've just picked that because, I don't know, the last project I did, that's the way the client wanted it set up, so that's just what I'm using today. But I could just as easily use an XY grid coordinate system to tell me exactly what drawing that component is on and where the location is on that drawing that that component is placed in. It's or I could just do a sequential thing. So if you just want it called you know, relay 1 or relay 2 or relay 3 or whatever it's going to be, you can just as easily do that, which is really nice. But that being said, I'm using the numbering scheme that I've got set up currently. Let's do a quick little lookup for catalog information, and this is going to help us populate the bill of materials. So if I look through the categories, you can see my category is a control relay, which is exactly what I inserted. So it's gone and found the correct catalog number, or the correct catalog to look up. I've got a number of different manufacturers in here. You can see Allen & Bradley takes the cake at the moment because we're searching on Allen & Bradley, but if I remove the search for Allen & Bradley in there, I would find multiple other manufacturers as well. But let's just go with an Allen & Bradley 2 normally opened relay. This information, interestingly, is actually generated from an Access database. So if you have Microsoft Access on your computer, you can actually go and edit this database directly inside of Microsoft Access. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment as well. So if you have a whole heap of catalog information which perhaps your company has been using for quite a while now, you could actually, you know, grab that Excel spreadsheet or wherever that information resides and pop it straight into that Access database without too much hassle, and then all of a sudden you could be using your own catalog information and not the default stuff from Autodesk. But let's go ahead and insert that. You can see the manufacturer and catalog information is put in straight away, as well as pin numbering as well. So for this type of for this catalog number and this relay, the coil pins in this case will be K1 and K2. Now that might be different pin numbers for you. This is actually just held inside the database or inside a database, and in that case we can just go and change what those coil pins are going to be, what the first and second child pins are going to be as well. And that will be set forever, which is really nice. So once we've got the pins done, let's put in a simple little description. So latch one. We can have that automatically capitalized, as you can see. In other cases, you might want to go and put in a default piece of text. So you can actually go into defaults and pick, something that you might type in a lot. So, for example, emergency stop wouldn't make a lot of sense right now, but let's say that was a piece of information you wanted to insert into your description lines. You can actually just pick on emergency stop there and click OK, and you can see emergency stop is entered straight away. If you wanted to change that, you could actually, I beg your pardon, if you wanted to change that, you can actually go into this file and it tells you where the file is and edit out any of the stuff you don't want and put in any of the stuff you do want. So, for example, you might not want the French or German version of it. So in this case, this is emergency stop. If I go OK on that, that's how to say emergency stop in German. That might not be important to you. So what I'd recommend you do is just find the location of this file here, get rid of all the stuff that's not important to you, and enter in the standard descriptions that you perhaps would more likely want to use. But I'm not going to put emergency stop in there because it doesn't make any sense. So once we've done that, that's fine. Just another little point on the component tagging. You can actually see we've got fixed and non-fixed. So, for example, if you're drawing a schematic of something that already exists in the real world, it might be R1, for example. If that's the case, you wouldn't want that to be wanting to update that component tag all the time. And what I mean is, remember how I told you that the component tag is generated based on the rung number. Now, if that's the case and you didn't want that component tag updating based on the rung number, what you would do is you would fix that. And that way, no matter what updates AutoCAD Electrical wants to do on the schematic, it will not touch that component tag. So that would be how I would address, a piece of existing equipment that I'm just adding to or something along those lines. So let's go ahead and do that. Once I've inserted that, you can see the cross-referencing table has been inserted. All the information's been put in there, and so on and so forth. This information here is all attributed information. And if I wanted to modify any of the attribute locations, I can go and move any of that attribute information. Let me just try that again without snap turned on. Beg your pardon. Let's say move, and let's put it across. One thing you will notice when I'm using AutoCAD Electrical is I am using snap or grid snap, which is probably what a lot of you are thinking is a little bit backwards, because in AutoCAD you're sort of taught to use OSnap and not grid snap anymore. But I find that grid snap is actually very useful in AutoCAD Electrical to make sure that all your wires are evenly spaced away from each other and those sort of things. So grid snap is actually a fairly useful tool in AutoCAD Electrical. And again, it would be something that I would set up as maybe 10 mil spacing between each grid snap. You could even do 5 mil, depending on how you want to set it up. So let's get going a little bit here and let's start drawing things a little bit faster. So I'm going to put in a few contacts for that relay that I've just placed in. And obviously I want to associate that contact with the relay, and this is all for the purpose of assigning pin numbers and making sure that everything's cross-referenced. So for example, if I ever want to know, where's the coil for this particular child component, I can back to each other, and we'll talk about that as well. So I can do it just by selecting on the parent and saying that's the parent, and that's what I'll do. You can see the next available pins are automatically put in there for you, and you can see all the information has been placed in straight away. Once I've used a component, it goes into the recently used area, and I'll place another one in nice and easily. And again, I'll just pick on the parent, which is nice. So again, very, very quick and easy way of inserting all of your information. As you can see, the cross-referencing information has been updated as well. And that cross-referencing information is telling you where to find your contacts. So in my case, it's drawing number 1, and that's what the 1 indicates, dash 37, which is where the rung number that it's sitting on, which is really nice. And if I was to go and, let's say, scoot that entire rung up to 42, for example, we would see that the cross-referencing has been updated to 42. So I don't know about everyone else, but when I was doing this stuff full time, I would be constantly printing things off and pulling out my highlighter and highlighting, making sure that all my cross-referencing was correct, and making sure I didn't have duplicate names and those sort of things. AutoCAD Electrical will really cut out a lot of that manual work. And also, it's probably an important point to bring up right now is that when using AutoCAD Electrical, whilst you see me using quite a lot of the AutoCAD Electrical functionality, realistically you're still in an AutoCAD environment. So if you wanted to leverage some of the features that you like, but other features perhaps you don't like so much or you think are probably more complicated than what you require, then that's fine. You don't. It's not an all or nothing sort of scenario. You take the pieces you like about AutoCAD Electrical and you ignore the pieces that you feel are probably too much detail, which is a very common comment that I get with AutoCAD Electrical, is that we don't go to that much detail or whatever it is, and that's entirely normal. And if that's the case, then you just pick and choose the functionality that you like. Some other features that I really like about AutoCAD Electrical, I'm a little bit anal when it comes to setting out my layout and all that sort of stuff. I really like to keep everything nice and in lines and things like that. So I've got align tools. I'll pick on the components that I want everything to line up with. So for example, this component here, I want all my contacts and all my other push buttons to line up with that one. And you can see just by using the align command, I can actually line everything up nice and neatly. I can use a line command for quite a few things. For example, I can use it for wire numbers, which we haven't looked at just yet. I can use it for tags. I can use it for labels. I can use it for all sorts of things. But I think you get the point. So let's. The other thing I did tell you I was going to mention is that if I ever want to find the coil pin or the coil schematic symbol or the child schematic symbol or whatever it is, I can simply just click on my surfer, and if I was to click on the contact, I want to know where the parent is for that contact. I can simply select the surfer, select on the coil pin, or select on the child component in this case, and it will list out all of the related components. So you can see in this case you have a normally opened contact and a normally open contact, and in this case it says P for parent, and that's where the coil pin is. So if I was to click go to, it would actually zoom straight in on the coil pin, and that's what you can see has happened just there. And this is irrelevant of how many sheets you've got in your project. So if you had this coil pin sitting on sheet number 500, for example, then this would just take you to sheet number 500, and it would show you exactly where that is, which is an extremely useful feature, because a lot of the time when you're trying to find, okay, well, where's the parent of that contact there, it's an extremely easy way to find things. One thing that I did think of showing you, but I haven't shown you yet, is just in the project browser here. One thing that I do like to do in here is to show the drawing list configuration. I like to be able to show more information than just the drawing number, because a lot of the time the drawing number is maybe not all the information you require. So for example, I like to see sheet number in there as well, and perhaps a description of the drawing as well. So if I was to go and use the drawing list display configurations and add some more information in there, you can see I now have not only the drawing numbers have been given to me, but the description information as well. I think that's a really cool feature, that I can pull out that information. And that information, well in this case, the information that I can see there is being pulled out of the drawing properties. You can see sheet number is there, and the description number 1 is there. So that's where that information is being pulled out of. And I find that really useful. That information obviously is still being pushed into your title block as well. I can see there is a question about title blocks. I definitely will get to that. I'll come around to that at the end. So let's move along. In AutoCAD Electrical, because we're navigating through from sheet to sheet quite a lot, what it likes to do is encourage you to use these little arrows next drawing project, or project drawing, and previous project drawing. And the reason why we do that is it actually saves and closes the other drawing and opens up the next one as I navigate back and forth. that being said, I can just as easily double-click on a drawing within the project and navigate wherever I like. I have a lot of people asking me, is there a limit to how many drawings I can have in a project? And the answer is no, not really. I haven't seen the limit, at least anyway, and I've seen extremely large projects. So I can honestly tell you that there may be a limit, but I haven't seen it, and I've seen hundreds of drawings in a project before. It manages them extremely well. All the information resides within the drawing itself. So there's no database to corrupt, and there is actually, it's what we call a scratch database, which is kind of like a guy standing over your shoulder taking notes on what you've done. But that database is kind of secondary. The information itself resides within the drawing, which means that there's no massive database to corrupt, which is really nice. All right, so let's jump on to drawing number 2. In this one, I like to again, this is really a productivity type utility that I like to talk about here, which is the copy and save circuit. Now, a lot of people, when I show this, they think to themselves, isn't that just the same as an AutoCAD copy? And the answer is no, because what this tool is going to do is it's actually going to not just copy it, it's going to redraw a standard circuit. Every time you insert it, it redraws it. And the reason why we want that to happen is so that the tag numbers update, we get new wire numbers for everything and those sort of things as well. So let's go ahead and use the copy circuit. I just want to make a copy of this particular circuit here. So let's do that. It's just as simple as using something from AutoCAD. So you can see, first thing we do is select the objects that we want to copy, which is nice and straightforward. Pick a reference point where you want to copy it from. And again, people think to themselves, this looks very similar to just a copy in AutoCAD. But as soon as I place this on the wires, you'll notice the terminals there will trim the jumper wire that I'm inserting it onto. Plus, all of the components will get renumbered based on the 54, 55, and 56 rung numbers that I'm inserting this next to. So let's go and insert that. It will pop up with a dialog box saying, hey, are these the settings you want to go with? Increase terminal numbers, all that sort of stuff. Yep, let's do that. And go ahead and insert it. So we've got terminal numbers X4, number 2, X5, number 2, and so on and so forth. So that's your terminal numbers. Plus we've got our fuses have been renumbered based on what rung they get put on. Not to mention that this is a completely separate circuit from the other one, so you can make modifications to this circuit and not have any effect on the first one. So let's go ahead and just put some fuses on there. Nice and simply, all the wires are cut. Remember, the simple stuff is the stuff that saves you lots and lots of time. Go ahead and OK on that, and you can see all the components are being placed in exactly how you want it. Lovely. So that's how to copy it, which is really good if you've got something to copy from. But if you've done something like this before, and perhaps this might be a standard circuit that you use for basically every project you do, and in three-phase motor circuit terms, they don't change too much. So let's say we wanted to save that circuit, not move it, beg your pardon, save it. So let's go and add a new circuit to my list, and this is my icon menu that I'm actually saving a new circuit to. And I'm just going to call this webinar three-phase motor, just so that we can differentiate it from other demonstrations that I've done in the past. You can see a lot of the, well, you would remember from the previous icon menus that you've seen, a lot of them have these really detailed, nice-looking previews. If that's the case and you wanted to add a nice little preview there, it's just a PNG file, and you just go and pick it, and from that point on, you'll have a nice little picture there. If you just want to use the active drawing, you can do that, or you can pick, I want to use that symbol there, or whatever it is. Let's go OK, and now it's just a matter of picking an insertion point and picking the components. If I have things in there that I don't want in there anymore, I can just hold Shift down, just like in AutoCAD, and deselect. But once I've selected all the components that I want included on my saved circuit, I hit OK, and it saves that circuit there. So that means that that circuit is now available for me and anyone else in my group of electrical engineers to use at any point in the future. So you would not need to draw all that again. And if let's say you did the same thing in AutoCAD, it would mean that every single time you insert that, you would need to, double-click on it, go into your XREFs or go into your attributes and change the tag numbers and all that sort of stuff. Whereas this tool sort of does it all for you, which is extremely useful. And I guess just to sort of prove that that's been saved to my icon menu, let's just go ahead and insert that one more time. So let's head over to my miscellaneous, which is where my user circuits are. And there's my webinar three-phase motor. And you can see how you want to insert it. Yes, we'll do all that. That's fine. And insert it at 0.70. And you can see tag numbers, everything's been redrawn, and all my bill of materials will be updated nice and easy. All right, so I mean that's one thing that I don't think is utilized really enough in AutoCAD Electrical. It's a really fantastic tool, and if you utilize it, you'll save a lot of time just with the simple things. Let's go across. For those of you using PLCs, there's a few different ways to insert PLCs. I'm just going to go over this really quick because it's turning into a little bit more of a demo than a webinar, but let's go ahead and insert not a connector, a PLC. There's full units PLCs, by the way. If you just wanted to use a PLC, like a PCB mount or something like that, you can see the different PLC ways to insert. That's not the one I use. I usually do an IO PLC. Parametric, and I'll just go ahead and insert this one, which is nice and simple. One of the nice parts is it'll just give me that cross there to say where do you want to insert it. It would detect the spacing of the components. You can see those dots there are showing 10 millimeters. So every row of dots is another 10 millimeters. So you can see it's detected 20 millimeters. The distance between those two rungs. Let's go ahead and allow for spaces and breaks because we want to be able to break it at the end. Some PLCs, and again this will depend on the PLC, might have some other I/O points. So for example, rack and slot number. And what this will actually do is it will go toward the numbering of the I/O points. So if we choose this particular PLC, the I/O points will be 1-1 because it's rack 1, slot 1, but it depends on what rack and slot number you type into here. And as you can see, that's exactly what you can see there. It's just different addressable points. I11, which is 11, but let's just choose the top one. Let's go insert. If you want to add a space, you can do that. Nice and easy. And again, I'm not going to spend much time on this. Let's add one more space. The PLC stuff is actually extremely useful if you are using PLCs, but I know that not everyone is using PLCs, so I'll try and keep it brief. I'm going to break the module. You can do the same sort of thing with plugs and connectors and those sort of things as well. And let's go and place the rest of it over here, and let's just go insert all. So as you can see, just insert the rest of them. Now we will have some shorts here, so in some cases you might want to leave the shorts there for other schematic components. But in my case, I want to trim out those wires. And you can see, in this case, we've got the intersection between two wires when two wires actually connect. We've got a dot there, and that's, again, part of our settings. And if I was to just use the trim command, you can see the dots and everything are removed, all in the same command. The wire's healed, anything I want to do there. And if I wanted to just leave that there and add some more circuitry down the bottom, then that's fine as well. So that's sort of just a little bit about inserting PLCs and those sort of things as well. If there are a number of components you want to insert, in this case, let's say you want to insert dozens of components at the same time, we can go ahead and go to the icon menu. I beg your pardon. Let's go ahead and choose multiple insert, and then we'll pick master. So this is the master. and we want to insert a bunch of them all the way through each of my rungs here. So let's go ahead and insert lots and lots and lots of those limit switches, and we'll go ahead and just accept all the settings. So again, it's a really, really simple, really fast way of inserting things. And I mean, I know I'm harping on about this a little bit, but you really have to consider how long it would take you to re-tag every single one of those components based on your rung numbers and those sort of things. So you're saving lots and lots of time, firstly on the insertion. So you're inserting it, you're trimming the wire, and you're renumbering it all in the same go, and it took literally half a second to insert 20-odd components. It's extremely fast way of doing things, which is cool. All right, so let's go ahead and just flick on to the next drawing. I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. No, we're probably running a bit short on time already. And some other productivity things. This is just, I don't know about anyone else, but if I wanted to draw wires from here to here, I'd head over to line in the past, and I'd probably I'd draw something like this. I'd probably use snap settings and try and get the coordinates across there so that it all fit. And it could take me 5 to 10 minutes just to draw a simple wire from this plug here to the PLC. But in AutoCAD Electrical, we actually get given a tool that will allow us to do all of that in one go, and that's what we call a multiple bus. So I've just picked on the component down the bottom. By turning the corner left and right, you can see it's either folded or not folded. At the moment, you can see my settings are set to grab whatever the dimensions is from the plug and then go to 10mm spacing. If I was to type in that and just change my default spacing to 20, for example, it actually wouldn't make any difference to how I insert that. So it's very forgiving in the way that it doesn't really matter what the default settings are there. If you were to hover over the component you want to plug into, you can see it just actually resizes the bus so that it fits exactly onto the component that we're trying to connect to. Once I insert them, you can see all the wires have been plugged in. And again, this is just one of those things where it really just chops down the amount of time you're drafting, and you spend more time designing and less time drafting, which is a bit of a catchphrase of AutoCAD Electrical, but really holds true in a lot of cases. Right, so once we've done the schematic, let's just go ahead and do some numbering. So I know wire numbering are a big hit normally in AutoCAD Electrical, and wire numbering can be done extremely easily. Again, every time you see these tools, think about how much time you spend inserting M-text and typing in a wire number and then highlighting the wire number at the end to make sure you don't have duplicate numbers and whatnot. It takes just as long to verify that you've got the schematic correct at the end of the drawing as it does to draw it in the first place. And this is where AutoCAD Electrical is really, really fast. Allow you to do your wire tagging, and you've got multiple settings that you can change for the wire tag. And let's go ahead and do those tag. You can pick individual wires if you wanted to tag individual wires, but I'm going to go ahead and do a project-wide tagging, and it's going to ask me what drawings I want included, and I'll just go and say all of them. And you can see, this is kind of cool. This is one thing that everyone kind of gets frustrated with, but I actually think is a nice little gesture by AutoCAD Electrical, which is, hey, I'm about to run some massive complete utility over your entire project. It's probably a good idea to save before you do that, because you might want to revert back to how it was beforehand or something. So it's a nice little gesture by AutoCAD Electrical to save before we go ahead and put numbers of wires all over every single drawing that we've got. And you can see that's what it's done. So we've got wire numbers on our drawing there. If I jump back to the first drawing, you can see there's my first drawing, and it's got wire numbers all over it as well. And they've been nicely located in the middle of each wire. Sometimes they might not be as nicely located. As you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4s down a little bit and 5s up here a little bit. Let's say I wanted to align all those. Again, I can use that align tool, and we'll go a horizontal alignment. So I'll just type in H, pick on the master, and again I'm going to turn that snap off because it's not so helpful. Pick on the wire tags that you want to align with that number 5, and you can see it just neatens everything up. So that's one thing that I really like to use that tool for, is just making sure everything is neat on my drawings. Same thing goes if I was to jump back onto, I beg your pardon, drawing number 5 there. You can see perhaps I want to tag it both on this part of the wire and on this part of the wire. Just by right-clicking on a wire, you can go to your wire numbers and copy wire number, and you can go and pick on wherever you want to place it. So for example, you might want to pick there and there and there. So that would give me a wire number on the top wire and on the other ones as well, on the vertical as well. And again, this is where you would use that, that alignment tool to make sure that everything was nice and neat. And you would do the same thing there, but I'm not going to bore you with that too much. So you can copy your wire numbers, you can manually type in your own wire numbers. So if you do have, you don't need to use the automatic wire numbering. If you just want to edit the wire number, and this is actually not 70, it's wire number R12-1 or whatever it's going to be, you can go ahead and change the wire number to exactly what you want it to be if you already have an existing wire number. So again, I really do reiterate, just use the pieces of AutoCAD Electrical that you find useful. And if you don't find a particular feature useful, don't use it. Use the stuff that you do find useful. It's still AutoCAD. You can do everything you can do in AutoCAD. Right, so let's move on quickly. I've got about 15 minutes left, I think, and then I've got to move on. So let's move on to the panel layout. Panel layout stuff is extremely useful, especially when you have a relationship between a catalog number and a what we call a panel footprint in the panel diagram here. So this push button here is actually related to that push button we see on the first page here, this one here. So that's the schematic symbol, and this one here is what we call the footprint, and that's what it actually is going to look like in the real world. So that component is actually related to the catalog number of that schematic, which means that we can actually get AutoCAD Electrical to go and find all of the blocks that we need in order to make a panel diagram and insert them for us. So there's no more navigating through a big folder of schematic symbols or blocks or whatever you've got set up. Because the catalog number will tell you exactly what block to use, and it will even go and retrieve that block for you. So let's go ahead and do that. And in order to get that functionality, we go to the schematic list. When we do that, it's actually right now it's wanting to go through and just find all of the schematic components that we have with catalog numbers. So that's what it's going to do. It's just going to run a scan on the entire project, make sure it's aware of all of the schematic symbols, and give me a list of them, and that's the list you can see here. This is the list of all the schematic symbols that I've used in the entire project. So you can see there's a few there, probably not as many as what a lot of you have got in most of your electrical drawings, but still quite a few there. We can mark any that are existing, so we have obviously inserted the main disconnect, the machine start, and the PLC start. So we've already inserted those as panel footprints. So what we want to do is we want to know those ones that have already been inserted. So we'll go and mark existing, and you can see there's a few fuses that we've inserted. We've inserted a circuit breaker, and we've inserted a few of the push buttons as well. So let's go and insert the rest of the push buttons. Another one of the nice parts is, well, take it or leave it really, is these symbols have all been drawn in imperial, so they're all in inches and whatnot. I'm not a big fan of that. All my templates and everything are in metric, which means that if I was to insert that footprint at a scale of 1, it would be inserted really tiny, because if it's 1 inch, then that reduces down to 1 millimeter. So what I want to do is, I want to scale it up. And I want to put in a rotation of 0 just so it doesn't ask me to rotate it, because obviously my push buttons are going to be rotated in alignment with the rest of them. And then I'll go and pick on that, and I'll go and insert. In fact, I can pick on all of them at the same time and insert things really, really quickly into the panel diagram. And again, even if you don't use all the other functionality, this is one feature that I really think is exceptional, because the amount of time you go looking for those blocks, this is just going to go and find it for you and insert it for you. So let's go ahead and insert that. It's going to ask us where do we want to place them. So in our case, we might just say place them horizontally and put them 20 millimeters apart or something like that. In my case, I'm just going to go and prompt for each, and we go OK. I also had an option there to suppress the dialog box after I insert each one, but in my case I'm only inserting 3, so suppressing the dialog box is probably unnecessary. But as I was talking there, you can see the component, or the block that I require is put right next to my cursor and saying, okay, well, where do you want to put it? So let's put the first one there. Dialog box pops up. Is all this information correct? Let's go and put an item number on there. That's fine. Go OK. Let's put in the next one, and let's go next, or whatever it is. Go OK. And you can see they'll all be item number 4 because they're all stop push buttons. Alright, and now we're back to our other screen here. So it's a really, really simple way of inserting things. And again, if I just wanted to do that in bulk, I could just pick on all of them and just keep placing them in. Once they're in, and again, I do stress this, once they've been inserted, you could just use that functionality. Let me just go ahead and it just wants to go and update the other drawings. You could just use that functionality, and now move is the same stuff. You can use move to move things wherever you want it to be. You can scale things up, you can scale things down. Again, just use the functionality of AutoCAD Electrical that you like, and don't worry about the functionality of AutoCAD Electrical that you don't like. Once we've inserted that, let's go and put a nameplate on really quickly. And I'm going to 25.4 is correct. Catalog lookup. And let's go with, I don't want automotive. Half round. Let's go with grey, that's fine. And go OK. Now just pick on the components that you want to put a nameplate on. By pressing enter, it's saying, okay, well here's your nameplates. And it's also inserted all the text from the schematic that we had before there as well, which is really cool. All right, so that's it's a little bit about the panel diagram, inserting DIN rail and wireways and all that sort of stuff. Exactly the same sort of stuff. You've got heaps and heaps of stuff in here which you can use. If you just want to draw rectangles for your wireways or whatever it is, you can do that. Rectangle. I don't know. I can just go over home and insert rectangle. You can see how it works. So don't be afraid of mixing a little bit of AutoCAD Electrical with a little bit of AutoCAD as well. Not a problem at all. This, as you can see, I'm actually drawing this one in model space, but I'm doing it through paper space. You could do this exactly the same thing if you wanted to. In the schematics as well. I've actually just set this up. In one case, I'm using model space over here. For those of you familiar with model and paper space, I'm using model space here because some people like to use model space. In other cases, I use paper space, and again, that's because some people want to use paper space. I'm really trying to show in this demonstration that it is entirely up to you on what you want to do. If it was my preference, I'd say use paper space in the way that I've got on the screen right now. But for those of you that want to do everything in model space, there's no issue with that at all. In fact, some people prefer it. So that is entirely normal. So the final thing that I'm going to do just before I address a couple of questions is that I want to do a quick report just so you can see how the reporting might work. This is one of the really big time savers in AutoCAD Electrical, is being able to do these reports. Let's go ahead and do an automatic report. We've got so many different reports that we can do. We can do PLC IOs, we can do cable from tos, cable summaries. By the way, I didn't mention cables. You can do multi-core cables in there as well, so you can do you can list what core of what cable is going to where, and those sort of things as well, which is extremely useful information, and obviously that will be pulled out into a table. We can do wire labels, so for those of you that have label making machines, this will export an Excel spreadsheet, for example, of all the labels that you need to print off, which is really nice as well. Again, it's just a very manual task if you're not using AutoCAD Electrical. But let's go ahead and use a bill of materials. Let's just go and say that. And actually, I do know that I don't think the scale is right on this one, but let's just use it just in case. I'm sure you'll get the point if the scale is wrong. And let me go and pick on the template I want to use. And I think it is Paperspace DWT. And I'll just do 0001 drawing for reports. Okay, so what I've done here, let me just explain, is I've gone ahead and picked two types of reports that I want to use. Now, in the list you can see when I pick on a report, let's say a component report or a PLC I/O report, you've got no file format name set up there. And that's because I've not set up a format how I want that inserted onto my drawing. And it's for that reason that I just mentioned, maybe the scale will not insert on this one correctly because I was using a different template recently. But that's okay because it would just be a matter of editing the file format. So let's say I go to the bill of materials and I edit the file format. What this would mean is, if I go and say put on drawing, I'm basically saying where do I want to put it on the drawing, how many rows on the drawing do I want. So for example, I don't want it to keep going until infinity because it would probably, I'd either have to scale the report so small that no one could read it, or I would have to make my title block huge or just go off the page. So what I would do is I'd go and put a maximum number of 50 in there, for example 50 rows in a bill of materials report. And at the end of that 50 rows, if there's still more items for the bill of materials that need to be made, it would either make another column of bill of materials. So let's say I would go down the page like so, and then it would start again on the right-hand side of the page. Or if there's no more room on the page, it would go to the next page and create a new drawing. And that's what we want it to do. So that's what my bill of materials is going to do. It's actually going to, let's go back in here. It's going to generate, maybe 50 rows of a bill of materials. If there's still not enough room in that 50 rows to itemize everything, it will go onto the next page and create another one. Whereas it's my from to one, it's going to go all the way down the page and it will start another column next to it. And if it's more than 2 columns, it will go to another page and start again. So my new drawing number is going to be 01. It's going to put the report on 01. A question I also get asked at this point is, can I export this to an Excel spreadsheet or something? And the answer is yes, absolutely you can. You can export to Access, Excel, even SQL in some cases, but that's up to you. So let's go ahead and go OK. So what it's going to do now is it's going to go and create a new drawing inside of my project and place the bill of materials onto the new drawing. Yeah, and see my scale is a bit wrong. That's okay though. I'm sure everyone here understands the point. So that's created my bill of materials. And now it's going to go ahead and do my from to list, and at the end of that it will be finished. So next thing I want to do, there's my reports there, 01, 02, 03, they're my reports. So let me just go ahead and make a new subfolder, call it reports. And I want to place those 3 drawings inside the reports folder there, and you can see everything's nice and put together. Now, as you can see, I did mention that my scale might be a little bit skew-if, and that's probably because the imperial to metric conversion that I don't have set up correctly. But that's okay, actually, because it will give me a chance to just show you that things can just be scaled. It's not a big deal at all. So if I wanted to scale things out, I can do so and just make it a bit bigger. It's not going to harm anyone. AutoCAD Electrical and AutoCAD really work quite nicely together, so there's no issue there. Let's use the move command and let's move that into the middle. Ideally, that's how I'd want it to look from the start, but due to some faulty settings, it wasn't, but that doesn't matter. But let's once we've done that, let's go and have a little bit of a look at how it looks so far. We've got tags, we've got quantities, we've got sub-assemblies, catalog number, and I've also got this description information here, which is actually a concatenation of all of the different lines of description. So you might have description line 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of which have been added into this one cell here. You'll notice that it is just an AutoCAD table, so it has the same functionality as an AutoCAD table, plus a little bit more, by the way. Each one of these columns is customizable, so you pick what columns you think are going to be relevant for your bill of materials. If you don't want to see the sub in there for sub-assembly, then you just remove it, and you would add whatever other columns you want in there. So chances are this will have all the information you would ever want to see in it, which is really nice. I'm going to scale up this other one as well, just so that we can see exactly what's happening. And let's move this one across. This is what we call a wire from to list, which is one of my favorite reports because it tells me everything I need to know in order to wire up this schematic. So you can see item number 20 there is coming from junction box 1. The tag of it is F50A, and pin number 4 goes to junction box 1, but let's say it goes from junction box to machine or whatever it is, and it tells me it's wired to this component here on pin number 3. It even tells me what color and what size wire to use as well. So there's actually a lot of really good information in there, which is something that I really love about AutoCAD Electrical, is that wire from to list. All right, I know I'm starting to go overboard a little bit, so let me just see if I can find your questions here. This little guy's not being helpful. I'm just reading a question here. Okay, so I have a question about single line drawings, and I hope I'm addressing the question correctly. So there is a question about single line diagrams. Now, obviously, well, not so obviously, but AutoCAD Electrical does support single line diagrams in the same way that we do the detailed diagrams as well. The way it does single line diagrams is it kind of uses single line diagrams as a partner to your detailed diagrams. So, for example, if I look into my schematic icon menu, I actually have this one line component. That's actually a single line component components there. So if I was to go and insert a motor, for example, and this is a single line diagram representation of the 3-phases motor that I had on that other one. So let's, just before I do that, let's go over here. So let's go and try that again. Here's the single line diagram version of the motor that I have here. Now, by inserting that, I actually don't want a component tag that based on rung numbers and all that sort of stuff. I might just want to give it a proper name, so M1 or something like that. Or I want to use the same tag. Obviously, I want this to be the same tag as the other component because I wouldn't want this to have one tag and the actual component up here to have another tag. I'd want the same tag. So what I'd use is I'd do a copy from a schematic tag, and that's where I pick on my my component. I go copy tag, and I use that tag number. So that's how I pick my single line diagram tags, and I use them inside of my single line diagram. That being said, most of the time we'd probably go the other direction. So we'd probably draw a single line diagram first, and then detail things in the schematic diagram. So I'd use the automatic tagging to tag my single line diagram with whatever tag I get given, and then I would use, when I detail that out, I would then use that tag in the detail just by using the same method that you just saw me there. So copy the schematic tag, gives me a list, I'll use that tag, and so on and so forth. So that's how I would use the tagging in a single line diagram. So that is, hopefully that's answered the question. If there's any other questions or anything, just shoot them through now, but we are running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to try and wrap things up now. But if there's a last minute question that I can answer. Okay, so there is another question just come through. Is there a way, so in the situation that a client gives me a title block, is there a way I can swap my title block out for my client's title block, for example? And the answer is yes. There's a few different ways we can do that. One way I like to use is what we call a copy replace. So there's actually a utility that allows us, and I have forgotten exactly where it is, so you're just going to have to give me a moment. But there is a utility that will allow me to swap the block out for a different block. And I can do that on a project level. So let's go ahead. I think it might be under utilities. No, it's not under utilities. It is a swap update block. We'll do a project-wide swap update a block or substitute a new version of the block. So that's so there is it's not that one. Swap browse for new block. Yeah, so that's it is you'd have to have a play around with that, but that's how I've done it in the past. So that is that's how to swap out any block inside of your electrical project. One thing to know, that the client, if the client was to give you their title block, obviously that would be that would need to be mapped so that the information inside of the drawing, so the information you can see here in your browser, is mapped into the title block itself. So there is a tiny little mapping attribute inside of the template, and that mapping attribute tells you how to map from, for example, a drawing description line into the title block itself. So there's a couple of little things we need to do, but the answer is yes, we definitely can do it, and it is some variation of using the update swap block, but I haven't done it in a couple of years, so you might just want to have a play with that. Yeah, so that's definitely how to do it. Anyway, I have to wrap things up. I'm getting hurried off, so thanks very much. There's one other question, which is there a recording of this? And the answer is yes, there'll be a recording of it. If you want any questions or anything, send it through to the email address that was at the start, but it's webinars at A2K, I think, is the email address. So you can shoot through information to those guys. Otherwise, it'll be up on our webpage and whatnot, so you will be able to get access to this recording. Awesome. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending, and I'll hope to talk to you all soon.